Hi guys, today we're going to read this called Magic Tree House number 21 Civil War on Sunday by Mary Pope Osborne. Contents. Prologue. Chapter 1 A Light in the Woods. Chapter 2 Crow War. Chapter 3 Field Hospital. Chapter 4 Freedom Fighters. Chapter 5 Angel of the Battlefield. Chapter 6 Keep Law. Chapter 7 Helping Hands. Chapter 8 Brothers. Chapter 9 Don't Give Up. Chapter 10 Home Sweet Home. Prologue. One summer day in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania, a mysterious treehouse appeared in the woods. 8-year-old Jack and his 7-year-old sister, Annie, climbed into the treehouse. They found that it was filled with books. Jack and Annie soon discovered that the treehouse was magic. It could take them to the places in the books. All they had to do was point to a picture and wish to go there. Along the way, Jack and Annie discovered that the treehouse belongs to Morgan Le Fay. Morgan is a magical librarian of Camelot, the long-ago kingdom of King Arthur. She traveled through the time and space, gathering books. In Magic Treehouse books 5 to 8, Jack and Annie helped free Morgan from a spell. In books 9 to 12, they solved 4 ancient riddles and became master librarians. In Magic Treehouse books 13 to 16, Jack and Annie had to save 4 ancient stories from being lost forever. In Magic Treehouse books 17 to 20, Jack and Annie freed a mysterious little dog from a magic spell. In Magic Treehouse books 21 to 24, Jack and Annie have a new challenge. They must find 4 special kinds of writings for Morgan's library to help save Camelot. They are about to set off to find the fourth of these. Chapter 1 A Light in the Woods. Jack looked out his window. It was a starry Sunday afternoon. There were dark clouds in the sky. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Jack stared down the street at the Frog Creek woods. When is the Magic Treehouse coming back? He wondered. Hey, guess what? Annie said. She charged into Jack's room. I saw a light flash in the woods. It was just lightning, said Jack. No, it was magic. A thrill of light, said Annie. I think the treehouse just came back. I'm sure it was just lightning, Jack said. Didn't you hear the thunder? Yeah, said Annie, but let's go check anyway. She started out of Jack's room. Then she picked the bag in. Bring your backpack, just in case, she said. Jack was always glad for a chance to look for the Magic Treehouse. He grabbed his backpack and followed Annie down the stairs. Where are you going? Their mom called. Out to play, said Annie. Don't go far, said their mom, and come in if it starts to rain. We will, said Jack. Don't worry. They slip out of the door. Then they ran off the street and into the Frog Creek woods. The woods are dark under the storm clouds. A cool wind shook the leaves. Soon Jack and Annie came to the tallest oak tree. Oh man, said Jack, you were right. The Magic Treehouse stood out against the gray sky. Morgan, called Annie. There was no sign of Enchantress. Let's go up, said Jack. He grabbed the rope ladder and started up. Annie followed. They climbed into the treehouse. It was hard to see in the dim light. Look, said Annie. She pointed to a piece of paper and a book lying on the floor. Jack picked up the paper. Annie picked up the book. Listen, he said Jack. He held the paper close to the window and read aloud. Dear Jack and Annie, Camelot is in trouble. To save the kingdom, please find these 4 special kinds of writing for my library. Something to follow, something to send, something to learn, and something to land. Thank you, Morgan. Camelot is in trouble, said Jack. What's that mean? I don't know, said Annie, but we better hurry and find these writings. Let's go look for the force, something to follow. I wonder where we should look for it, said Jack. What's the title of the book you are holding? Annie held the book close to the window and read the title. Yikes, she said softly. She showed the books to Jack. On the cover was a painting of a peaceful-looking field with a blue sky. The title said, The Civil War. The Civil War, said Jack. Cool. Annie frowned. Cool, she said. War's not cool. It sort of is, Jack said uncomfortably. She knew war was bad, but some part of it seems fun, like a game. I guess we'll find out, said Annie. She pointed to the cover. I wish we could go there. The thunder boomed through the woods. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. World War. Glaring sunlight filled the treehouse. It's really hot here, said Jack. Especially in these clothes, said Annie. Their clothes had magically been changed. Annie wore a long dress. Jack wore scratchy pants and long-sleeved shirts. His backpack was now a leather knapsack. Where are we? asked Annie. They looked out of the window together. The treehouse had landed in a tree at the edge of the field, the same field on the cover of the book. It looks so peaceful, said Jack. Where's the Civil War? There, whispered Annie with a shiver. She pointed to the woods beyond the field. Jack saw a soldier riding a horse out of the woods. The horse was covered with mud. The soldier's blue uniform was torn. His arm was bloody. Another man rode into the field. His blue uniform was rags too, and his head was bandaged. Oh man, whispered Jack. Who are they? He opened the Civil War books and found a painting of some soldiers in blue. He'd read to Annie. (1861 to 1865). The Civil War is also called the War between the States because it was fought between the southern and northern states of the United States. Southerns are gray uniforms and were called Confederate soldiers. Northerns are blue uniforms and were called Union soldiers. So they're Union soldiers, said Jack. He pulled out his notebook and wrote, Civil War, 1861 to 1865, Blue North Union, Gray South Confederate. Jack looked at his book again. He read aloud. The Civil War was a cruel and bloody war. More people died in this war than in all of America's other wars put together. 1 out of every 5 young men in the nation died or was wounded. That's bad, said Annie. Jack wrote in his book, Cruel War. Wow, they keep coming, Annie said. Jack looked up. More Union soldiers were coming through the fields. They didn't have horses. They would look sad and weary. Some of they limped. Some of them helped others along. One man stumbled and fell down. I have to help, said Annie. Wait, said Jack. She started down the rope ladder. You can't help, said Jack. A kid can help. But Annie kept going. Don't forget, we have to find some special writing for Morgan. Jack called in a loud whisper. Something to follow. He packed the Civil War book and his notebook in his knapsack. Then he started down the ladder. When he stepped onto the ground, Jack saw Annie in the distance. She was holding her hand out of the fallen soldier. She helped him to his feet. The soldier slowly started walking again. Annie walked beside him. Oh, brother, said Jack, and he hurried to catch up with Annie. The sun was scorching hot as Jack ran through the dry field. He was sweaty in his scratchy clothes. He caught up with Annie. Together they walked silently with the soldiers. At the edge of the field was a steep hill. Everyone stopped and gazed at the sight below them. Rows and rows of white tents. Thank goodness, said the soldier beside Jack. We are saved. Chapter 3, Field Hospital. Jack and Annie walked with the soldiers into the camp. Outside the tent was a long line of men in the torn blue uniforms. They looked tired and hurt. Many were bloody and barely able to stand. Women wearing dark dresses are giving out food and water to the men in line. Where are we? Asked Annie. I'll find out. He pulled out their book and found a picture of the campsite. He read, during the Civil War, field hospitals are set up quickly near battlefields to treat wounded soldiers. Soldiers stayed in the field hospital for a short time before going back to fight or moving to a larger hospital or being sent home. This field hospital in Virginia took care of over 400 patients. That's a lot, said Annie. It sure is, said Jack. He pulled out his notebook and wrote, Field Hospital, set up near battlefield. Jack read aloud again from the book. More than 3,000 women helped out as nurses during the Civil War. Nursing was a new job for women in America. Before the war, only men had been nurses. Wow, said Annie. Maybe we can be nurses. Forget it, said Jack. Kids can be nurses. Jack wanted to find the special writing for Morgan and go home. The sad scene at the field hospital was making him feel sick. I'll just ask, said Annie. She headed over to nurses cooking over a campfire. Annie, we've got a mission, Jack called, but Annie kept going. Jack heaved a sigh. He tucked his notebook and the Civil War book under his arm and followed her. Waves of heat rose from a small cooking fire. The young nurse was heating a pot of coffee. Flies buzzed everywhere. Hello, said Annie. The nurse barely smiled at them. Her face was red and beaded the sweat. Her eyes looked terribly tired. Where are you from? She asked. Frog Creek, said Annie. We'd like to volunteer as nurses. The young woman didn't seem at all surprised. We could certainly use some help, she said, sighing. Some of us have not slept for days. Why not? Asked Jack. The wounded coming here from a battle near Richmond, said nurse. More and more keep coming. It never seems to end. Just tell us what to do, said Annie. While we feed the new patients, you can go to the first two tents, the young nurse said, and give the other soldiers their noon meal. She pointed to a basket filled with bread and potatoes. Next to it was a ladle and bucket filled with water. Anything else? Annie asked. Just try to give them comfort, the nurse said. How do we do that? Said Annie. I don't have time to show you, the nurse said, but here's a list of things that can help. She put a piece of paper from her apron pocket and handed it to Annie. Annie read the list to Jack. Be cheerful, lessen sorrow, and give hope. Be brave. Put aside your own feelings. Don't give up. Follow that list, said the nurse, and you can go wrong. The nurse took the pot of coffee from the fire and carried it to the line of a man. Follow, said Jack. Follow the list. That's what she said Annie. Jack took the list from her. Don't you get it? He said. That is it. We found it. The special writing for Morgan's library. Something to follow. Yes, said Annie. Jack put the paper into his knapsack. It was handed right to us, he said, smiling. We can go home now. Oh no, not now, said Annie. We have to help us nurses first. But Annie, said Jack. She picked up the food basket. Then she started towards the row of the white tents. Wait, we're supposed to leave, Jack said weakly. Our mission is over. The truth that he didn't want to help. He didn't want to be around wounded and suffering soldiers. It was too sad. Bring the water bucket and the ladle, and he shouted. Then she disappeared inside the fourth tent. Jack groaned. He knew he couldn't change her mind. He pulled out the list and read the fourth line. Be cheerful. Oh, brother, he said. Jack pulled the list back into his knapsack. He picked up the heavy bucket, hurrying clumsily after Annie. He tried to smile. Chapter 4. Freedom Fighters. Jack carried the water bucket into the tent. The scene inside was lit like a nightmare. The tent was hot and stuffy. A dozen injured soldiers lay on small cots. Some called for food, others begged for water, or just moaned. Jack wanted to rush back outside, but Annie got right to work. She rubbed her sleeves and smiled. Hi, everybody, she said cheerfully. None of the soldiers smiled back. I have good news, she said. We've brought lunch. Annie moved down the row of coats. She handed out pieces of bread and chunks of potatoes to all the patients. You'll be feeling better soon, she said to one sick man. You'll see your family again, she told another. Jack looked around nervously. He didn't sure what to do. Give them water, Jack, Annie called to him. Jack saw the thin cup beside each man's cot. He picked up the fourth cup. Carefully, he used a ladle to fill it with water. Keeping his eyes down, Jack handed the cup to the patient. He felt shy and comfort. Abel. He didn't know what to say. Comfort Abel. He didn't know what to say. Jack moved on to the next patient, then the next. He gave each wounded man a cup of water, but he never looked at any of them or spoke a word. Soon Jack and Annie had finished passing the food and water. "Goodbye," Annie said. She waved and left the tent. Jack quickly followed her. "Let's go home now," he begged once they were outside. "We've got what we came for." "As we leave now, the patient in the next tent will go hungry and thirsty," said Annie. Jack sighed. "Okay," he said, "but after we take care of them, we're leaving for sure." He followed Annie into the next tent. Just like the last tent, it was filled with wounded soldiers, but the soldier in tent was all African Americans. "Hi, everybody," Annie said, smiling warmly. Again, she passed out potatoes and bread. She also talked and made jokes. Jack poured water into each of the thin cups. Again, he didn't speak to any of the soldiers, but as he handed back over the last cup, a patient spoke to him. "Thank you for your kindness, son," the soldier said. Jack gazed shyly at the man on the coat. He was an elderly, silver-haired black man. "You're welcome," said Jack. He tried to think of something else to say. He remembered Annie's cheerful words. "You'll be well soon," he told the patient. "You'll be able to sit with your families again." The man shook his head. "No, I will never be with my family again," he said quietly. "My wife and children were sold long ago." "Sold?" said Jack. "Yes, we are slaves," the man said. "You're a slave?" asked Jack. "All of us in the tent were once slaves," the man said. "We ran away from our owners in the South to fight end slavery, to fight from freedom to our people. We ran barefoot for over 30 miles to tell the Union soldiers that the Confederates are going to attack." The man fell silent. "You're a very brave freedom fighter," said Jack. "Thank you, son." The man closed his eyes. Jack wanted to know more about slavery, but he didn't want to bother the very patient. He pulled out the Civil War book. He found pictures of African Americans standing the platform. The men, women, and children had chains on their hands and feet. Jack read, "In the 18th, the United States was divided over the issue of slavery. The North wanted to country to end all slavery, but the South wanted to keep slaves because more than 4 million African American slaves worked in the huge plantation fields there." His disagreement between the North and South led to the Civil War. Jack looked down at the man's face. He looked very weary. Jack pulled the nurse list of rules from his knapsack. "Lessen sorrow and give hope," he read. Jack put the list away. He leaned close to the man and spoke in a soft voice. "One day your great-great-grandchildren will be doctors and lawyers," he said. The man opened his eyes. Jack went on. "They have run the government and schools. They'll be senators and generals and teachers and principals." The man stared into Jack's eyes. "Can you see the future, son?" he asked. Jack nodded. In a way, he said. The man smiled a beautiful smile. Thank you, son, he said. Then he closed his eyes again. Good luck, whispered Jack. He hoped the brave man will live to enjoy freedom. Ready to go home now, Jack? Said Annie. She finished passing out the food. Jack nodded. As he and Annie stepped out of the tent, they heard someone shout, She's back! A horse-drawn wagon was barreling into the camp. Who's back? Annie said. Clara Baden, a patient said. She runs this hospital. Clara Burton, said Annie. I don't believe it. Who's Clara Burton? Said Jack. He'd heard the name before, but he couldn't remember who she was. Who's Clara Burton? Said Annie. Are you nuts? She ran to meet the wagon. Chapter 5 Angel of the Battlefield. Jack still didn't remember who Clara Baden was. He pulled out the Civil War book and read. Clara Baden was a famous Civil War nurse. When she began nursing, she used her own money for the supplies. She drove a horse-drawn ambulance right onto the battlefield to help save wounded soldiers. For this reason, she became known as the Angel of the Battlefield. Jack put the book away. Then he hurried to Annie. He looked at the woman sitting in the driver's seat of the wagon. She doesn't look like an angel, Jack thought. The woman was very small. She had a plain, serious face and dark hair pulled back in a bun. She wore a long black skirt and a black jacket. In the back of the wagon were more wounded soldiers in torn, bloody uniforms. They moaned and cried out. Nurses, both men and women, were putting the wounded man on stretchers. Clara Baden wiped her forehead. She looked hot and tired. Can we help you, Miss Burton? Miss Burton? Annie asked. Who are you? Said Clara Baden. Jack and Annie, said Annie. We are volunteer nurses. What can we do, Miss Burton? Clara Baden smiled. First, you can call me Clara, she said. Second, would you ride with me back towards the battlefield? There are more wounded waiting to be picked up. Sure, said Annie. Jack didn't answer. After seeing all the suffering men in the wagon, he was afraid of getting closer to the battlefield. And you? Clara asked Jack. Her dark, serious eye looked right into his. Jack didn't want to admit he was afraid. Sure, no problem, he said. Very good, said Clara Baden. Let's go. Jack and Annie climbed up into the driver's seat next to her. By now, all of the soldiers had been taken out of the wagon. Take care of my new family members, Clara called to the nurses. She snapped the reins. The horse-drawn ambulance rolled off, sending up clouds of dust. Chapter 6 Keep Low. The wagon jerked and swayed as it bumped over the dry ground. Jack felt as he was flying in the hot sunlight. Dust from the road filled his throat and eyes. The boom of cannon grew louder and louder. Jack heard popping sounds too, like the noise of firecrackers. What's the popping noise? He shouted, blinded by dust and sunlight. Musket fire, said Clara. Jack remembered that muskets are big, long, old-fashioned guns. What are those flashes? Asked Annie. Jack tried to open his eyes and see what she was talking about. He saw bright flashes of light in the distance and puffs of smoke in the sky. Cannon shell exploding, said Clara Barton. Shells are like small bombs. They have ruined much farmland. Jack squinted at the passing countryside. The ground was filled with ugly holes, long ditches, and also cut through the fields. Did the shell make these ditches too? He asked. No, those are trenches the soldier dug for a battle, Clara said. Each side digged their own. Day after day, they sit in the trenches, firing their musket at one another. Jack tried to imagine how terrible it would be to sit in a trench all day, waiting to be shot or waiting to be shoot someone else. We have to get some water, said Clara. She drove the wagon to a narrow creek. A stream of water flowed downhill, running over rocks. The wagon came to a halt. Jack heard a whistling sound and then another. Keep low, cried Clara. What's that? Jack asked. Cannon fire, she said. Jack and Annie crouched down in the driver's seat. Jack felt a rush of panic. He pulled out the list. His hands were shaking as he read. Be brave. Oh, great, he said. He thought. Another cannon shell whizzed overhead, then another. The ground exploded over and over in flash of light. Dark clouds flew everywhere. Clouds of smoke and more dust filled the air. The horses neighed and whined. Be brave, Jack thought. Be brave. Chapter 7. Helping Hands. The firing came to an end. The horse calmed down. The smoky air began to clear. Clara handed Jack and Annie each a canteen. Fill this quickly, she said. We have no time to waste. Jack's leg felt wobbly as he followed Annie to the creek. They filled their canteens and climbed back into the wagon. Keep alert, said Clara. Look for the wounded as they come off the battlefield. She snapped the reins. The horse started off again. As they bumped along, Jack looked ahead for wounded soldiers. There, said Annie. She pointed to a man limping towards them and waving his arms. The man looked very young, more like a teenage boy. His uniform was torn and bloody. It wasn't a blue uniform, though. It was great. Clara pulled the horse to a stop. But he's a Confederate soldier, said Jack. When someone is hurt, you give them a helping hand, no matter who they are, said Clara. Her voice got softer. I have seen courage and kindness on both sides of this war. Sometimes things are not as simple as they seem. Jack was glad they had stopped to help the soldier. He jumped out of the wagon. Do you need a helping hand? He asked the young man. Thank you, the soldier said softly. Jack helped him into the back of the wagon. The soldier lay down on a pile of blankets and closed his eyes. Jack climbed back onto the seat beside Clara. She snapped the reins and they rode on. They came across more raged men resting in the shade of the oak tree. The soldier wore blue uniforms. Again, Clara stopped the horses. See if any of those men needed a ride to the hospital, she said to Jack and Annie. Jack gazed at soldier sleeping in the back of the wagon. Can a Confederate and Union soldier be together? He asked worriedly. Clara nodded. Sometimes men are simply too sick and try to be enemies anymore, she said. Sometimes they even know each other. Many families and friendships have been torn apart by this war. Let's go, said Annie, hopping out of the wagon. Jack followed her. They carried their canteens to the man under the oak tree. Hi, said Annie. Does anyone need to go to the hospital? Only John, a drummer boy, a soldier said. He's suffering from a heat stroke, but we all need some water, miss. Jack saw a young boy lying on the ground. His eyes were closed. Oh, Jack, whispered Annie. He looked just like you. The boy did look like Jack, just a few years older. We better get him to Clara's ambulance right away, Annie said. She handed her canteen to one, and she tried entire soldiers. Another soldier lifted the drummer boy to his feet. The boy opened his eyes and mumbled a few words. He tried to talk, but he swayed as if were about to faint. Wait, Jack grabbed the boy. We'll give you a helping hand, he said. The drummer boy put his arm around Jack and Annie's shoulders. Just a little further, John, Annie said. You're doing great. Just a little further. The drummer boy moved as if he were walking to his sleep. His hand hung down. His feet shuffled in the dust. Take good care of him, one of the men called. We can't do without him. Chapter 8, Brothers. Clara Barton had turned the wagon around. She helped Jack and Annie lift the drummer boy into the back. The soldier had said he has his stroke, Annie told Clara. His name is John. The boy lay down next to the sleeping Confederate soldier. He does have his stroke, Clara said. The boy also had high fever. We must get them to the hospital at once. Can you two stay in the back of the wagon and do as well I tell you? Yeah, sure, said Jack and Annie. Clara damped 2 clean clothes with water from Jack's canteen. Gently press these clothes against their face to help cool them off, she said. She gave the clothes to Jack and Annie. Then she went to the front of the wagon and climbed in. The wagon started forward. Jack and Annie gently patted the soldiers' faces and the damp clothes. Jack looked at the young man lying side by side. The two seemed far more alike and different. In another time and place, they might have been friends, Jack thought. Finally, the wagon arrived at the field hospital. The Confederate soldier was put on a stretcher and carried to a tent. 2 soldiers wearing badges put our drummer boy to a stretcher. Could you stay with John a while? Clara Barton asked Jack and Annie. Sure, said Jack. Try to bring down his fever, Clara said. A nurse will give you ice packs and press against his chin. Find me when his fever is lower. The drummer boy was carried into an empty tent. Jack and Annie followed. John was put on a coat. Then a nurse brought some wrench and bucket filled with ice. Jack and Annie were left alone with the boy. Jack wrapped some ice in a rag. He pressed his ice pack against the boy's head and neck and arms. Annie fanned the air to cool John off and keep away the flies. Jack felt so hot he pressed the ice pack against his own face for a moment. Then he looked up Drummer Boy in his Civil War book. He read, the Civil War was the last war to use drummer boys. The trumpet was used to give orders to soldiers. Different beat told them when to eat, how to march, and even how to fight. On a smoky battlefield, the boys drumming helped soldiers find one another and keep together. Wow, said Jack. He closed the book, pulled out his notebook. He read and wrote, Drummer Boy, really important job. Suddenly John shouted. Jack looked up from his notebook. Then the drummer boy was still asleep, but he was waving his arm as if he were having a nightmare. Annie shook the boy's arm. Wake up, John, she said. You okay? Wake up. The drummer boy opened his eyes. You're having a bad dream, said Annie. You sleep now. You'll see your families again soon. No, the boy said. He sounded frantic. I have to go back to the battlefield. No, you don't have to go anymore, said Annie. You can go home and be safe. No, the boy said. They need me. They need my drum. He sounded more and more upset. Jack thought about their list. Put aside your own feelings, he remembered. Okay, John, said Jack. You can go back as soon as you feel better. Jack, said Annie, he'll get hurt or killed. I'm afraid for him. Me too, Jack said softly, but we have to put an old feeling aside. That's one of the things on your list, Annie sighed. Okay, she said sadly. She looked at John. If you want to fight again in the Civil War, you can. If that's what you really want. Thank you, the boy whispered. You're the bravest kid I never met, Jack said. The drummer boy smiled at Jack. You look like my little brother, he said hoarsely. You look like my big brother, said Jack, except I don't have a big brother. I don't have any brothers. The three of them laughed. The drummer boys laughed was very soft. The boy laid his head back on his pillow and closed his eyes again. For in a moment he was sleeping peacefully. A smile was on his lips, and he felt his forehead. His fever gone down, she said. We should go tell Clara. And he left the tent. Jack got up and slowly followed her. When he reached the entrance of the tent, he turned and looked back. The shadow of twilight fell across the boy's calm, sleeping face. As was strange, Jack hardly knew the drummer boy, but he felt as could be brothers. Listening to a cannon fire in the distance, Jack was afraid for the boy. He will live to see his family again? Jack wondered. Good luck, John, Jack said softly. With his heavy heart, Jack stepped out into the warm evening air. Chapter 9. Don't give up. Annie, said Jack. Over here, she called. Jack saw the figures saw two figures standing in the twilight. She walked over Annie and Clara. They all stared in the direction of the distant battlefield. Bright light flashed against the dark blue horizon, cannon shells exploding. Every time you see a flash, you know a shell may have taken a life of many lives, said Clara. That's awful, said Annie. Yes, it is, said Clara. A whole world can vanish in that flash. All a young man's joys and sorrows, all his memories. This is a cruel world, said Annie. Oh, was cruel, said Clara Barton. People feel they must fight for causes they believe in, but they soon discover that war is not about glory and fame. It doesn't misery and terrible pain and sadness. It makes me miss my mom and dad, said Annie. It makes me really miss them. Annie sounded tired and homesick. Finally, she had lost her chill fleece. I think it's time for you to go home, said Clara. Jack thought of all the wounded men who needed food and water and kindness and comfort. No, Jack said, we have to stay. We can't give up. That's on the list. Don't give up. Jack pulled out their list to show Clara Barton. Oh, yes, she said, nodding. I see one of my nurses and writing down the thing I often say. Let me add one more thing more. Do not forget the one who loved you. Love you. Jack heaved a big sigh. He was homesick too. Can we keep the list? He asked. Of course, said Clara. You don't have to work in the hospital to follow the words. They work in all the life no matter where to go. Thanks, said Jack. My thanks to both of you, said Clara Barton. You are great helpers. You are a great teacher, said Annie. Goodbye, said Clara Barton. Be very cheerful going home. We will, said Jack and Annie. Bye. The sun was setting as they walked out of the camp. The boom of cannon sounded in the distance. Soldiers sang and sung around a campfire. We are attending tonight on the old campground. Give us a song to cheer our weary hearts, a song of home and friends are loved to dear. Jack and Annie walked through the dark and darkening field. By the time they reached the wood, the stars were out. They climbed out of the road ladder to the treehouse. Annie grabbed the Pennsylvania book. Wait, said Jack. He looked out the window. He couldn't see anything below, but the soldiers' song still carried through the warm, starry night. Many are the hurt and are weary tonight, missing for the word to keys. As Jack listened, he thought of Clara Barton and her elderly slave, the young confident soldier, and Joan and Drummer Boy. War is not a game, Jack said softly. It is definitely not a game. Many are the herd looking for the right to see the dawn of the peace. The song ended. The cannon fire stopped. The night was quiet. The canyon, except for the croaking frogs. Ready? Annie whispered. Ready, said Jack. I really wish we could go home, Annie said, pointing to a picture of Frog-Creek woods. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still, absolutely still. Home, Sweet Home. There was a blooming in the distance. Jack opened his eyes and caught his breath. Is that campfire? He wondered. Are we still back in the Civil War? We are home, said Annie. Home, sweet home. Oh man, Jack whispered. They were home. They were back in the Far Creek woods. They were wearing their own comfortable clothes again. The canyon fire was really only thunder. At the moment, Jack loved the thunder. Raindrops tapped against the treehouse. We better hurry, said Jack. Wait, leave the list in the treehouse, said Annie. The full special writing for Morgan's library, something to follow. Jack took the list of Clara Barton's rules out of his pack. He put it on the floor next to Morgan's letter. I wonder how the list will help save Camelot, he said. I don't know, said Annie, but you know what's weird about getting that list? I think we wouldn't just have taken it home when we first got it. We had to leave it first. Jack nodded, and he was completely right. He thought. He picked up his backpack. Wait, I see another note, said Annie. She picked a piece of paper off the treehouse floor. On it was written, "Come back on Wednesday." I guess that's when Morgan wants us to look for the next special writing, said Annie. That's in 3 days, said Jack. Let's go home and rest. He started down the letter. Annie followed. When they stepped onto the ground, the rain began to pour down. Run, said Jack. They ran through the Far Creek woods, then down the street. They ran to their porch and dashed into the dry, cozy house. They found their parents reading in the living room. Mom, Dad, Annie cried. We're so glad to see you. Well, we're glad to see you too, said their dad said, sounding a little puzzled. Go put on dry clothes, said their mom. Jack and Annie started up to their rooms. Halfway up the stairs, Jack stopped. Oh, I have a question, he called to his parents. Did anyone in our family fight in the Civil War? Their dad looked surprised. Yes, he said. One of your great-great-great-grandfathers was a drummer boy. Oh, man, whispered Jack. What was his name, Dad? Asked Annie. John, the dad said. Jack and Annie gasped. And what happened to John? Jack asked. Was he hurt in the war? No, he grew up to be a school teacher, their mom said. He had 5 children. Jack and Annie whooped in joy. That's great news, said Annie. Really great news, said Jack. Thanks for telling us. Sure, this dad smiled, looked through. Though he looked puzzled again. As Jack hurried up to his room, some words from the Civil War song ran through his mind, giving a song to cheer on our way, hearts a song of home. The end. Thank you for reading this story. Magic Treehouse number 21, Civil War on Sunday by Mary Pope Osborne. The end.